Yo guys, Inferno here today with another review. So today's review is for Eternights, which is a hack and slash game with dating simulation in it as well, which is being developed by Studio Psy. So if you played like Devil May Cry and Persona, it's pretty much like a blend of those two together, which is not really like a super interesting take, but you know, you don't really see many action style games with like romance and options like these. Usually it's like RPG or something, but anyway, let's just get right into it pretty much. So the story of Eternights puts you into the shoes of a young adult who is trying out new dating apps to his friend named Charlie to basically obtain a girlfriend. Not long after, you get a message from a potential nice girl. However, this is where things just start to fall apart. Normal people start to turn into these weird creatures and attack any human on sight. This leads us to go into safety bunkers while the world is pretty much going to shit pretty much, and we're just waiting for further instructions from the broadcasters there. Now, after a few days of being in the bunker, we stop getting TV broadcasts about what's happening, and then we decide to go out. And this is where you encounter like one of the first females that you get to date in the game, named Yuna, who is a popular idol who's very into pirate teddy bears for some reason. I don't know why, but it is what it is. After a few close encounters and a death as well, we meet another woman who ends up chopping off our right arm and causes us to faint. And then we meet a woman who was supposed to go on a date with on a magical boat pretty much, where she basically tells us that we have to save the world from another god who she's essentially been fighting for God knows how long. And by doing so, we can return the world to normal where everything goes pretty much back to normal, but everyone who died is dead regardless anyway. Here you basically cannot say no to her, which I've tried for a long time, so essentially you just have to say yes at this point. And this is where she gives you the special arm, which allows you to turn into many different things. So sword, hammer, chainsaw, you know, you name it. Obviously there's only a limit in the game as how much they developed into it, but basically could turn into anything if it wanted to. And this is where essentially the story starts for us on the journey for us to basically return the world to normal and go about our daily lives again pretty much. So throughout the story we'll meet three other people who are named, or sorry, not three, four, who are named Min, Sia, Johan, and also Arya, who's basically kind of like a navigator for like the first part of the game, but after a while she like disappears and you don't really see her till like pretty much like the end of the game pretty much. I won't say why, but there are reasons. You'll meet these other three characters, so Min, Sia, and Johan. You'll meet them like throughout the story. Min and Sia you meet like in Act 2, Act 3. Johan comes like pretty much near the end of the game. Bearing in mind this game is not too long as well. But yeah, they're all interesting characters for the most part. Some of them going through some stuff. Sia's a bit what's the word I'm looking for? I wouldn't say a freak, but she definitely has her, or not, she definitely has like an interesting personality out of like all of them pretty much. But at the end of the day, you'll get to see all of them. If you go through their confidence and stuff, you get pretty much a background story on them as well. But I won't dive too much into that as I know some people want to keep it for themselves. So we'll just leave it as that, and you'll see when you play the game. So essentially, as I was saying, in this game, there are five acts, sorry. And like Persona, if you do not finish before a certain day, you'll basically fail and game over. I'll explain more of this later as there was a big flaw when playing this and you actually did fail. Like I'd done it just on purpose just to see what happened, and yeah, I couldn't believe how the developer kind of like forgot about something about it. But yeah, I'll go into that when I'm talking about the improvements of the game and stuff. Now for the story itself, a rating I'll probably give it like 7. You know, it wasn't too bad, it wasn't the greatest of greatest stories, but I think most people that are playing it can get through it. They'll understand like what's going on and stuff easily. I think certain parts of the story definitely could have been a bit improved on. Some of the pacing as well could have been improved on as well, but you know, it's nothing to the point where I'm just like, yo, this is like pretty bad, let me just drop the game completely. But yeah, story wise it was pretty decent. You know, it's your standard oh, the world's ending, let's go and save it and beat up like the bad enemies and all that stuff. The voice acting for Eternights was pretty decent overall. I know some people are not the biggest fan of English voice acting, but Honestly, when I play these games, if I have the option to play in English, I just tend to do it because it's just easier for me to follow. Not to say that I can't really follow Japanese, but I'd rather just be able to play it in my native language without having to read the text on the screen every minute, as that can be a bit straining. Now, I can't confirm for the other language if they've done a great job or not, but I'm pretty sure they've actually done a stellar job for it. So when other people want to go and play it, I'm sure most people probably go and play it in Japanese, but I think they've probably done a decent job. Like for a game like this and a studio like this, I think they got some decent voice actors, especially for Charlie. I think Chinese voice actors like probably one of the best ones out there. As for the translation, I actually think it was done decent. I can't really confirm if the translation is like a one-to-one or close enough when playing with a different language, but we all know in recent times where it's kind of like changed completely from, say, Japanese to English because of insert whatever reason they wanted to do it. Sometimes I don't know why they do it, but that's what happens. But I think for the most part, I think this game they actually done a decent job. So I wouldn't worry too much about translation and stuff. I think some stuff might come off as a bit cringe and all that, but you know, it's not the end of the world. For the gameplay aspect of Eternights, I would say it's pretty much straightforward. It's an action style game with a few abilities that you can use and some support abilities that you can use from the 3 girls that you meet throughout the story. You have a 4-hit light combo and a 3-hit heavy combo. Now throughout the game you'll find these items, or something, I don't know what to really call them, but they're essentially called black essence, from defeating certain high level enemies, bosses, or some sort of like hidden area in like a dungeon or something. These are essentially used to obtain new moves for the main character, along with strengthening these moves as well. Bear in mind that when you're trying to get like the higher levels, you need to have your confidence at a certain rank before you can unlock it as well. Now there is also a item called white essence as well, which is essentially gained from doing mini games with your confidence or doing scavenge hunts with them as well. These are basically used to boost your stats, so your HP, your attack, defense, SP consumption, all of that stuff. And these can also be used to boost their support moves that you can use throughout the game. So you can have like HP regen from Yuna, one ice attack from Sia, one electro attack from Min. Also Min has, what was it, guard abilities as well. Sia's ones is more like AoE and slow the enemies down and all that stuff. So essentially if you level these up, you'll do more damage, you can tank more hits as well. So yeah, it's a bit of a mix here and there. So basically with your time in this game, as you don't really have infinite time, you kind of need to figure out if you want to actually go for these white essences, which I say you can go for a bit, but it's not too needed as much. Though if you really want to go for it, I would say probably max out Johan, because he has a lot of skills that can benefit you in the game, which will probably just make it way too easy at that point. So how scavenging works is basically during the night of a certain day or so, or pretty much every day in the game, nighttime is where you can go scavenge. The confidence will basically ask you, I want this item, then you have to select from library, warehouse, or convenience store. Essentially what I would do, or a tip I would say for you guys, is that when doing this, save beforehand, because if you go into the wrong place, you've basically wasted that night, and that is it. And I think that happened to me like 2 or 3 times, and I was like, oh crap, I kind of messed up there. But essentially once you find it, you get a boost to your stat, so it could be HP, attack, or defense, or something like that, along with like white essence as well. With the mini games, these are pretty straightforward pretty much. So essentially these can be done within the day or the night, depending on your choice. And there's like a few of them. So with Yuna, there's a breathing one. Min is a squat mini game, which is like Final Fantasy pretty much. Then you have Sia and Johan's one as well, which are pretty decent for the most part, but I don't think many people will probably be spending too much time doing these, as they are just the same stuff. They're just like no difficulty to them or anything, and you just get the same rewards. I think if you get a perfect in these ones, you get, I think, like 4 or 5 white essence. If you do bad, you get like 3 or 2, so it give or take. But yeah, I don't think you'll be spending too much time there. I think it's a nice addition to the game, but it didn't really add too much value to the game. So I don't know, maybe they could have replaced it with something else, but it's there for the people that actually want to do it. But again, I don't think it was worth it to do during my playthrough at all. Now, as for the combat itself, so fighting enemies and stuff, essentially you'll see a few familiar moves from Devil May Cry, aka the Stinger and the Three Swords, which is pretty obvious where that one came from. But I guess one thing that kind of, I wouldn't say shocking, but I was surprised is that we can't jump in the game for like aerial combos and stuff, which honestly I think that would have been very nice. Then again, most of these enemies are grounded, they don't really jump or anything. I made just a few that kind of jump, but it's not too bad. But yeah, that would have been nice. We do have perfect dodge in the game, so it's like witch time in a sense, where if you do perfect dodge, it slows down time and you can get in a few more hits easily. We also have a parry button as well, which I would say it works when it wants to work. I think I've parried probably like 20 times in total in the game, because half the time it was just not working for me. I don't know if I was too slow or too fast, or the time was just off with certain moves from certain enemies. But yeah, parrying in the game, it can be good, but at the same time I think the dodge is just worth way more value in the game. The dungeons in Eternights are not too long for the most part. There's not too many of them either, though I would say the final two dungeons are pretty long than usual, but it's nothing too major. There are a few puzzles in each of them. Nothing is too hard. You know, I don't think a lot of people struggle with it unless you really suck at like maths and stuff. But I think even by that time, all the answers and all that stuff will be out. The layouts in these dungeons are super simple and straightforward. It's just to go from like point A to point B pretty much. Except for like the last one where you can go a few different routes and stuff, but yeah, it's nothing to the point where you'll be stressing and all that stuff. There are a few nods to Persona with some of these puzzles as well. So for example, in one dungeon, you basically had a picture puzzle to sort out, which is similar to what we've done in Futaba's Palace in Persona 5. So yeah, you can easily sort that one. That one wasn't really too hard at all. So yeah, you'll see a few nods to Persona here and there as well, which is kind of to be expected, as the person that made this game was inspired by it. But overall, dungeons were decent. I wouldn't, definitely not the best. I think they could have used a bit more work in some of them, but I guess there's only so much you can do, I guess. So yeah, don't really expect too much out of all these dungeons. Now, the difficulty in the game is not too bad either. I honestly found it pretty easy for the most part. So I was playing on normal for a bit. I decided to bump it up to expert, and I didn't see too much of a difference. Like nothing to the point where I was like, yo, this is like quite hard or anything. Literally everything was just very manageable. I think I died like probably like 4 or 5 times throughout my whole playthrough. And that's just because I couldn't really heal at the time, because if you don't have the SP consumption skill, you're pretty much screwed in the game. So yeah, that's one thing to watch out for when you start out. I think difficulty could have probably used a bit more work. As for the enemies in the game, you probably see about not a lot of a variety in some of them. Like when you go to the end of the game, you might see 1-2 different ones here and there, but yeah, you'll face the same enemies over and over again. Some of them are a bit tanky for no reason. Like I understand the big enemies can be like tanky, but your average size enemy, sometimes they have a lot more HP than that I felt they should have had, but there's nothing too much you can't handle. Sometimes their hitboxes can be a bit weird for certain moves that they attack you with, so keep that in mind. But I think for the most part, I'd say gameplay itself was good. I enjoyed what I played for it. I felt maybe there could have been a bit more towards it. Air combat would have been very nice, as that's always a plus in my book, really. I think the jankiness of certain enemies, certain areas as well, could have been worked on a bit more, but you know, it happens. It's not the end of the world. It's not like I had like a game breaking bug or anything like that, but yeah, I think those stuff couldn't be worked on, so we'll just leave it as that. So don't expect like the flashiest combos and everything from this game, but It's super straightforward, so I think if you're just here for a chill experience, I think you'll enjoy it quite a bit with the gameplay. Romance in Eternights is probably one of the big features of the game and the main selling point. So again, I obviously don't really have to say this, but if you play Persona, it's essentially the same thing. So the only thing that we don't really have to worry about is the repercussions of dating multiple people in the game, where we get beaten up at the end or something, or get caught out. And we don't have as much ranks as say Persona. Persona's like 10 ranks or something like that. This one is up to 7. So yeah, the 3 girls that you meet can be romance, but for Johan, who also has 7 ranks, I'm not too sure if you can romance him or not. Basically you need to max out courage, and by the time he comes, I'll probably say most people's courage wouldn't even be past level 2 at that point. I'll be very surprised if it is. So yeah, I'm not too sure. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. Honestly, I think me playing the game once was enough. I don't think I'll go through it again just for that, but maybe they can come and confirm that like when the game releases or something. Yeah, as I said, there's like no penalization for dating multiple characters. You can't exactly go out with dates with them once you've romanced them. So when you reach the 5th rank, that is where you can actually say, do I want to commit to the relationship or just stay as friends, pretty much. But yeah, again, there's like no repercussion. The only thing that changes is the ending. So I didn't know this when I was playing it, but essentially if you stick with one girl, when you see the ending, there's like a little snippet of them. And then apparently now that I know is that if you do actually stick with one girl, you get a QR code to see like an extra scene for the ending as well, which I mean, I guess it would have been helpful for me when I was doing it, because at the end of the day, I still went with Sia, which I kind of felt like best girl there anyway. But yeah, I still like confessed to the other girls as well, because I was like, why not? So had I known that, I would have probably just stuck to Sia and called it a day. But that is there, so for you guys that actually want to see it, go for it. I'm sure someone probably uploaded by the time the game's out and everything. But I guess that's kind of like one incentive for people to actually just stick with one person. Now, as for the romance scenes itself, I thought they were pretty nice. Some of them a bit cheesy here and there, but I mean, when it comes to this stuff, man, it can never be smooth. It's always a bit, yeah. Was it okay? Was it not? Was it too cringe? Or was it not? You know, it's one of those ones. So it just depends on the person. For me, I didn't find it too bad, but someone else will be looking at me like, yo, what the hell is this bad? This is like way too typical for like anime stuff, pretty much for them. But you know, we get into that age, I guess, or at least I am, where I think I just can't really deal with this stuff as much anymore. But I thought they done it pretty nice. So for the 7th rank, which is the final rank, you do go to like their room and stuff, and you do get like a nice picture of them kissing, like I want to say portrait, but like anime-ish style, which I think was quite a nice addition to the game as well. So kudos to them for adding that in. But yeah, enough about the romance. The social links themselves, I felt were pretty decent for the most part. Like again, I kind of touched on it earlier, you kind of get a backstory of all of of these characters, or like where they've come from, what's happened to them when the world was ending and everything. Some of them are a bit sad, but you know, it's to be expected, I guess. You know, when I play these games, I kind of always expect, you know, someone's always having like some hard time earlier or something. But yeah, I think for the most part, they've done the social links quite well. The romance is done pretty well as well. You actually do get to see them kiss in games, like not like blurred out or anything. So I think that part, yeah, they've done a good job on that. So I can't really complain about that at all. Now, I have praised the game for doing a fair amount of stuff well, but I think there are quite a bit of improvements that can be made for the game or the next game that they ever decide to make. So, for example, when scavenging with a confidant in the night, I believe you should be able to raise the affinity as well when doing it. So essentially, you don't raise the affinity doing this. So the only thing you're getting, as I said earlier, was the white essence and some bonus to like your HP or attack or something, pretty much, which is okay, but I think yeah, an affinity would have been nice to it as well. Certain small enemies, as I said earlier, can still super armor through most of your moves, which I kind of expected from like the big bosses and all that, and like elite enemies. So even that was a bit annoying, because at certain points I felt some enemies they'll do like a free fireballs, and you think they've just done one, but apparently a second one comes out and the animation is already done. So you just get hit by that, stunned, and then I think what happened to me, I just got one ball combo to death, which kind of annoyed me because that type of enemy is like very tedious sometimes, but it is what it is. Honestly, I think that one, like with enemies and all that, I think they could have used a bit more work on it. The music as well in the game could definitely use some work. Like for the most part, I think for probably like half the game, the music was, I would say, non-existent for me. Maybe coming near to the end and stuff, you can hear it a bit more and stuff. Like nothing, it doesn't have to be something special, but at least something that can at least catch my attention, because I feel music actually helps in playing some of these games as well. So that part definitely could have used some big work on that. Some dungeons were pretty long for no reason, especially the second to last one. I felt that could have probably been cut down slightly. The final dungeon as well seemed your typical one where you just do a gauntlet and everything, which I guess it's kind of okay, but you know, with all the enemies that are coming there, it does take quite a bit of time. Um, yeah, maybe that could have used some work on it as well. Boss fights in the game were stupidly easy, like to the point where it was just like no challenge. It was like just basically fighting a normal mob sometimes, which I mean, I kind of expected a bit more. Even like the final boss was pretty simple for the most part. I won't spoil it and everything, but yeah, literally, I doubt anyone's gonna have like too much of a hard time with it. So yeah, the difficulty and boss fights definitely could have used a bit more work. I think there's probably like one boss fight I actually enjoyed, which was in like the second to last dungeon. But apart from that, most of these boss fights, you know, some of them are just like enemies that you actually face later on, so it's like nothing too special really. I think more moves could have been added into the game as well, instead of us just having four special moves to just basically choose from. Where I mean, they're not bad moves, but I felt with a game like this, I think if you're doing action, you gotta have a fair amount of moves to be using in the game. So essentially, it just felt like I was just doing the same old four-hit combo or three-hit heavy combo, maybe into like Stinger, use the free source to basically help myself when I'm like dealing with multiple enemies and stuff. You also have like the what's it, arc slash in a sense, where you just do like a little wide AoE attack. That one was pretty good, but yeah. And you had Whirlwind, which is good for like AoEs as well, like when you're surrounded, but I didn't really find too much of a use to use half the time in the game, because I mean, half the time some of these enemies will die very quickly, other times they'll be super tanky, and Whirlwind was just like useless for them. So yeah, I think for that part they definitely could improve on as well. Now the big issue for me, or and that could have happened to everyone, right, is the fact that if you didn't save before the last 3 day, you would basically soft lock yourself, and you would have to load up a save like way before, say, the due date. And say for example you've been saving on that same slot over and over again, you are basically screwed and would either need to start the game again, which I think probably might have happened to some people, or basically just wait for a patch. So that was a big oversight on the developers' side, which I'm not too sure how it's slipped past them. But I think if you're doing something where you have to do something for the due date and you forgot to save or stuff, you should at least have an autosave that good, like basically puts you back before you screwed up pretty much. So yeah, that is like big issue. Another one, which is not really so much of a big issue, but something that I was just kind of surprised, it was the fact that there was no new game plus. So once I finished the game literally just puts you in the main menu, and it's like, hey, here you go. You can just start a new game again and get all your stuff up again, or load up your save and do whatever. And I was like, you know, I think for this type of game you kind of need new game plus, which it's quite shocking. But you know, I guess maybe they just didn't think they needed it at the time. Right, so when I finished recording my review, I got an email like a day or two after, basically saying that there's going to be some improvements to the game. So I figured I might as well just add this in while I still have the time to do so. So there's a part where I basically talked about the new game plus and the possibility of being soft locking yourself out of the game. They've essentially fixed that, so there will be a new game plus on launch day when the launch day patch releases. And then as for the soft lock issue, essentially, if you've not completed the task by the due date and everything, there will be an autosave that will put you back. I think they said 2 days or something before, so just to give you a bit more time. Which is quite nice because I think if they just left it as it is, I think a fair amount of people are being soft locked and pretty pissed off. So at least they've seen it and actually rectified it quite quickly. And yeah, I kind of wish more devs were like that pretty much, but what can we do? There are like a few other like miscellaneous stuff that they added in as well. I'll probably just put that on the screen for you guys to read. But yeah, those are the main two major issues of the game pretty much. So it's nice that they've actually took time to add those in and everything. So yeah, that's a short message from future Inferno. So I'll leave you guys back to the present Inferno. Now, with all that said and done, we've basically come to the end of the video, as usual. So, overall, I felt Eternights is a nice nod to some familiar series in the industry that we've all loved and played, but I feel it fails to have its like own identity at some points, which I think when you're making a game, that is what you kind of want as well. It did have somewhat of a decent story. Our MC and best friend are pretty much quite the degens in the game, so if you are degenerate, you probably understand them quite a bit. Combat is solid for the most part, but it can be janky and super easy at times. The music tracks are, I wouldn't say non-existent, but I think most people just probably forget about it half the time. And hopefully, I think the developer can improve on some of these aspects if they decide to make another game or basically a sequel to this if they really wanted to. But I honestly think for their first game, I think they've pretty much got most of the basics down. They got a lot of good stuff down. Obviously I said there's improvements that can be done as well. So I think, yeah, if you guys are interested in like your hack and slash and your romance games, I would definitely say give this game a shot. It's not too long of a game. You can finish it within like 10 to 15 hours pretty much on like one playthrough. I think I was done by like 14 hours or so, bearing in mind I kind of left it on for a bit. But yeah, to studio side, if you are watching this, I'll say good job on your first game, from having an inspiration from Persona, which is like kind of crazy to even think about. I do hope that you guys continue to make games and hopefully you get like a bigger team and stuff, a bigger budget, and then I think you guys can actually make even better games in the future. So yeah, I do hope you guys continue at it, and yeah, if you guys got something else in the future, I actually will be very curious to see like what you guys got. But yeah, as for recommendation for the game, yeah, I'll say give it a shot for people. It's not too expensive or anything, so it's not gonna break your wallets or all that. But yeah, I think give it a fair shot. I think for the most part, I think everyone would enjoy it. Maybe there'll be a few issues here and there, but I think yeah, it's a decent game overall. Just a few issues here and there and improvements that can be done. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. It is quite a long one, but I just wanted to get all my thoughts out and everything. If you've got any questions about the game and stuff, let me know in the comments or on Twitter, or X as it's called now, on all that stuff. And yeah, I'll see you guys for my next review, which will probably be out sooner or later pretty much. But yeah, thanks everyone for watching, and I hope you have a great day, evening, night, whenever you're watching it. And yeah, I'll see you guys later.